Hello guys, this is Doran's Movies and welcome to the 6th episode of the big Q&A. As promised in the previous video, this one is released a bit earlier as when I made the previous Q&A I was a bit short on time when I recorded it, so I said I was gonna answer some more questions in this one. So as usual, I'm gonna talk a bit about the channel in the first section, about what is currently going on with the channel, about the stuff I'm gonna do in the future, and the second part will be about the lore. So if you're new to this, if you just found this video, the times are in the description below, so you can just skip to the parts of the video that interest you, so just go ahead and do that if you wish. Alright, so what I want to talk about the state of the channel. At the moment, if you might have noticed in the past month or so, the production is going a bit slower. The channel is kind of on a down period. That's kind of normal because there isn't much going on with WoW at the moment. I mean, there were books already covered that, but Legion itself is gonna be released in less than 2 months. So until the Legion is released, I'm kind of a bit of on a down period and I'm covering some of the lore that is kind of obscure. It's not really related to the Legion lore, so it is kind of a good time to cover some topics that I usually wouldn't cover, but you shouldn't really expect too much out of the channel until the Legion release, because at the moment there isn't much going on in World of Warcraft, and I'm personally not even playing the game anymore. Like, until recently I used to log in and just do some things, but I haven't really logged in like a week or two, and it's pretty much normal. I've always done this when the expansion is really long, because there's not much to do. I don't really have the time to roleplay at the moment, so there's really nothing I can do, but I'm obviously still interested in the lore. I mean, if I wasn't interested in the story, I wouldn't be making these videos, but the thing is, when I'm actively playing the game, I'm much more productive and I want to do more WoW stuff, and I finish things a lot faster, because usually when I'm playing actively, the videos are out every like 4 days instead of every 5 to 6. Another thing that is kind of a bit of a different topic is that my production has changed a bit, so it's technically impossible for me to finish a video in less than 3 days. If I work like super effectively, like all day long, I might be able to get them in about 2 days, but that depends on a lot of factors. The time I put into my videos is actually much more than most people think, because just the audio alone I spend about 3 to 5 hours, really depending on the video length, because I have my own workflow. I go to like 2 passes of editing the audio, and I also up the video quality a bit recently. Like, the shots are much more numerous than usual. For example, before, when I had let's say 5-minute video, I would take about 70 shots, but currently it's about 110 for a 5-minute video, which means for like a 10-minute video it's like 200 and something, which is quite a lot, and it adds up time-wise, both in organizing which shots to take, because I always like write down each shot I want to take, then actually recording them and editing them in the video, so it does take a lot more time than, let's say, like a year ago. Like a year ago I could make videos faster, but the quality just wasn't really the same. Also, I started adding more sound effects to the videos. I've kind of always done it if you watch my videos in the past, but I've really upped the number of sound effects I use, and even though it does add a bit more time, it's really not that consuming, and I feel like I should have just done this earlier, because I feel like these simple sound effect adjustments add a lot more value to the storytelling of the video and just explain the story a bit better, and they don't really take that much time to do. So I kinda skip topics here, but the point I'm trying to make is that once Legion is released, you should expect more videos from the channel, and I will finally get back to streaming. I've been meaning to stream for a really long time. I always say I'm gonna stream again and again, and I actually like seriously set out time to stream in like June and July, but then I thought like, there's really nothing I can stream, because I want to stream World of Warcraft, because most people that watch this channel watch me for World of Warcraft, and there's really nothing I can do in the game that's really interesting, and I'm not really interested in just like doing all dungeons or just leveling characters, because I've done it so many times in the past and it's also not that interesting to watch, and I'm personally not that interested in doing it, which kinda makes the stream a bit more boring. So I'm just waiting for Legion, which is gonna be out in less than 2 months, and then once it's out, like a few weeks after that, I will get back into streaming. I'm not gonna stream on day one, because if you guys have waited for the expansions in the past, there wasn't a single expansion release that wasn't like really bad on the servers or was like super buggy. Not really buggy as in like the beta, but just like the servers were usually awful for like the first week or at least the first few days, so I'm not even gonna try to get on like that first day hype and just try to stream that. I will stream probably a few weeks after the release. So the thing is, for the videos, that was for the streaming. For the videos, Legion is gonna be huge for the channel because I'm gonna get a ton of new information I can cover, a lot of new lore. As I said, until the expansion is released, I'm gonna cover some unrelated topics, and I'm also gonna cover some things that are gonna be relevant in Legion. But once the expansion is out, there's gonna be a lot of new lore. I'm guessing there's gonna be new books as well, comics, and definitely a lot of new lore stuff going on, so I will have a lot more new shots, new information that I can just put into videos. I guess some could say I could still do it because I am in the beta, but personally I've been in the alpha and the betas pretty much since it was released, but I haven't played it much on purpose because I had one experience with Warlords of Draenor when I played the beta, and I played it so much I completely ruined the expansion as it was once it's released, because Warlords of Draenor, as most of you know, didn't have that much content, and most of the content there was, I did it in the beta, and it really ruined the expansion for me, which is why I was bored of the expansion much earlier than it would be normal to do so. Because the thing is, like, when you play the beta, like, you see the content, the quests, the dungeons, you see them when they're in a really early stage, when they're super buggy, when things don't work, when there is no sound, no voice acting, no like ambient sounds. It's really like this silent buggy experience. Usually, I mean, it's good, but it's not as good as it is on release. For example, that Tanan jungle intro to Warlords of Draenor was amazing on like release, but I've done that like 20 times in the beta of like different variations, when they added like the first section, the second, the last section, when they started adding sound effects. So even though I am completely aware, I mean, everyone knows the beta is supposed to be buggy, but it kind of ruins the game for you because you get the first impression of broken quests, and it's just not the same thing when you do it on release. So that is the main reason why I've kind of abstained from playing the Legion beta, and I'm just waiting for release, and it doesn't even matter at this point. It's gonna be out in like less than 2 months, and I'm definitely super hyped for it, and you should expect a lot more videos on the channel once the expansion is out. Alright, so there isn't that much more about the channel that I really want to talk about. There are some things, but I'll save it for a different Q&A or maybe even the streams that I want to talk about. It's not really relevant, and I don't want to make this channel section too long. So, without further ado, let's not waste too much time. Let's get into the lore questions. The first question is by Lloyd Gush, and he asks: if the Plague of Undeath is made by using Fel or Shadow by tapping into Death/Decay, could it be cured partially or completely using life/spirit magic like druidism and shamanism? Also, is druidism a kind of a shamanistic magic that only uses the fifth element, spirit/wild, or shamanism a kind of druidism that uses nature to barter with the elements? Also, are holy healing spells using holy directly to heal or using holy to tap into life? Alright, so this is a bit of a complex question. There's a lot of things you're asking, but I'll try to structure the answer as best as I can. Druidism and shamanism, as I've covered it in the past, is similar, but not really the same thing. The shamans use the fifth element known as the spirit that most worlds have, like pretty much almost all of the worlds, but it's kinda similar to what monks do. They call it chi, although it's not exactly the same practice of monk healing and shaman healing. But the druids, they're kind of similar but also different at the same time. The druids, what they do is they accelerate the natural healing process, and in other cases they borrow the life essence of nature and transfer it to who they're trying to heal. However, a big difference with the Plague of Undeath is that the plague is magic and it's very hard to counter fel and void magic with druidism and shamanism, although the light is one of the only, if not the only counter, as the light and the void, if you read the chronicle, they're kinda the two sides of the same coin, while fel magic is kind of a mix between arcane and the void, but it is very similar to the void itself. So this is one of the reasons why light is so effective against the undead. Even in Warcraft 3, like, you could use healing spells to damage the undead, which is kind of a weird thing, but as I said, they're like universal magics, like they're pretty much light and the shadow, they're kind of like the polar opposites and they work sort of in like a synchrony with each other. So to answer your question, can the Plague of Undead be cured? It's kind of a yes and no. There have been some instances so far in World of Warcraft that we have managed to reduce the grip of the plague and in some way cure them, but there are still many magicians, herbalists and various others that are searching for a cure, although usually in most cases when they did cure subjects, that would usually just kill them and free them from undead, but it wouldn't usually revert them to their original form, and it's almost impossible to revert someone to being, let's say, a human if they're an undead. Okay, the next question is by Ghost59Able, and he or she asks, who are more powerful than the Void Gods? Alright, so I'm guessing by the Void Gods you mean the Void Lords, which are kind of a recent addition to the lore. As far as we currently know, they are the most powerful creatures in existence, and we only learned about them recently with the Chronicle book. As far as we know, the Titans and even the strongest of the Titans, such as Sargeras, were no match for the Void Lords, as the Void Lords literally created the Old Gods like it was nothing, and the Old Gods are such trouble for us. I mean, sure, they weren't really a trouble for the Titans, but they're still such powerful creatures, and so many of them were created by the Void Lords, which kinda represents their power. However, it was said that the Azeroth Titan, the world soul that is in the world, if it became a Titan, it would be able to counter the Void Lords, but it is still unknown how many Void Lords actually are there, and if this Azeroth Titan would be able to defeat one of them or all of them, or if it even would be able to counter them in any way, because we never really learned about it and we're most likely never going to learn about it. But so far in the lore, there isn't a single creature more powerful than the Void Lords, and even the Burning Legion, that is such a huge threat, is literally nothing in comparison to the Void Lords. And you can definitely say at this point in the lore, with the knowledge we have, that the Void Lords are the main villain and the biggest enemy of the entire universe. Alright, the next question or questions is by Vorgen Curse, and he or she asks, is Sylvanas going to decay like a normal undead and die? Second question, why is Saurfang's father green-skinned but his son has brown skin? Alright, so I'll try to separate the questions. The first question is a bit tricky. If Sylvanas was left to the natural process of just like being an undead, she would eventually decay and would definitely look more like a skeleton. However, she wouldn't really die as she is an undead. I mean, we have seen so many undead that are in like the worst possible state and they're still alive, if you could even say alive. However, most of the Forsaken are under the influence of necromancy and various different potions and experience that the undeads use that kinda keeps them from rotting away. Sylvanas is obviously the leader of the Forsaken and she definitely has like the best care possible, so as long as there is like magic included and various other sources, she is definitely fine. For example, if you look at Metal Fellstorm, who is like super unique when it comes to undead because he is an undead but he is not a Forsaken, and he has actually been undead for nearly 3000 years due to a fatal wound he received in the war against the trolls. However, Meryl is a very powerful mage. He's even said to be one of the first 100 mages, like the human mages that learned magic from the High Elves, and due to his use of magic, he was able to keep himself alive and preserve his own body for nearly 3000 years, and he's kinda like the original undead. So there is pretty much proof that undead, under the right care and under the use of magic, they can definitely preserve their own body. Okay, for the second question, I would say it's pretty simple. It is kinda the exact same situation with Grom Hellscream being green and his son Garrosh Hellscream being brown. The reason for this is because both Saurfangs and Hellscream's sons were sick, so they were isolated in a Grand in Geradar, and they never really took any part of the invasion, becoming today what we know as the Magar, or the only remaining uncorrupted orcs, because most orcs are green skinned because they were a part of the invasion and they were under the influence of fell magic. It's not even just like the blood of Manrod they drank, like the Magar never drank the blood of Manrod, but also their skin changed mainly because of being around fell magic, and these orcs, like the selected orcs, were never under any presence of fell magic and they were pretty much always isolated from it, so they were able to remain uncorrupted. Alright, we have 2 questions left. The next question is by Ultimate Jeebus, I guess, and he asks, what is the origin of the gnolls? In game, it gives no clue towards them. Trogs and murlocs we know about, but not gnolls. Well, I wouldn't really compare Trogs and Murlocs because they're not really the same thing. The Trogs, they were Titan creations that were heavily affected by the Curse of Flesh, while the gnolls and the Murlocs, so far as we know, they're native creatures to the land of Azeroth. Like, they kinda evolved themselves from the spirit essence that was on the world, like the life essence. When it comes to the gnomes, their origin hasn't really been set in stone, although it is widely accepted that they're descendants of some sort of like a hyena ancient that lived in the past, similar to a lot of other creatures whose roots are related to some sort of an animal ancient, such as the Quillbor or the Furbolgs. Although a lot of this is based on the theory of Brand Bronzebeard, where he says that there's some sort of hyena ancient descendants, which what Blizzard actually means is that this is most likely the case, but we don't want to say it for certain because we might be able to change it in the future to fit the story, so it is kinda the current lore, but it is subject to change. Alright, and the last question is by Byron, and he asks, what was Neltharion's job before he was corrupted by the old gods? I know his title is Earthwarder, but why exactly is that needed? I assume it is to do with dragons, but I doubt Deathwing would hold up well against one old god, let alone all of them, which was technically shown since he got corrupted. Oh, well, Neltharion, he was kinda known as the Earthwarder, which meant that he was the protector of the land. What that actually means, it's kinda ambiguous. What it actually means is that he has power over Earth and deep places of the Earth. That means that he can forge mountains, rivers, kinda similar to some of the Titan Forge, such as the Giants. Obviously, he couldn't defeat the old gods, but I think he could possibly defeat one old god because the keepers in the past, they managed to defeat the old gods, and Deathwing has an essence of a Titan keeper. And the thing is, like, old gods, when they're trying to free themselves, they're extremely weak at that state. And I mean, we did manage, like, the 25 of us or like 10 of us managed to defeat Yogg-Saron, which means that Deathwing would definitely be able to defeat like an old god that is trying to break free. But that really wasn't the case, because this power he had was the main reason he went insane, because he felt the weight of the earth that he was supposedly controlling. He felt like that earth was controlling him and it was like a burden. So in order to free himself of this burden, he made a pact with the old gods, which he already could sense because, as I mentioned earlier, he has power over deep places under earth, so he could definitely feel the presence of the old gods. So pretty much to answer your question, we don't really know too much about his role before the corruption, like what he actually did, but as far as we know, he was a caretaker of the continents and he had the power to control Earth, if that makes sense. Alright, and that is all I have for this Q&A. I'm kinda sorry I have to make these a bit shorter. I did answer more questions, but it's like super hot currently where I live, and I can't really turn a fan on because that would really ruin the audio of this, so I kinda have to rush some of this stuff, but I hope I answered all your questions. If you do have any questions about the lore or even about the channel, feel free to ask them. I will put them in different sections of the video. So thanks a lot for taking the time out of the day to watch this video, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this, and also like the video if you want to support the channel. Thanks a lot for watching this video, and see you next time.